It was the winter of '89, and Ukraine was colder than anything I'd ever felt in my bones. The kind of cold that doesn't just bite your skin, but gnaws through the uniform, through the flesh, and straight into your marrow. Even now, sitting here with a warm tin cup of coffee and a blanket around my shoulders, I can close my eyes and feel it again. The crunch of boots on frozen mud, the sting of snow-laden wind cutting through every seam in my jacket, the way my fingers stiffened around the rifle no matter how many times I flexed them. We weren't supposed to be there, not officially. That's what they told us before the trucks rolled out from the base outside Vinnytsia. Just reconnaissance, the lieutenant had said, his voice too smooth, too practiced, like he'd been handed the line minutes before. Routine patrol near the Carpathian foothills. A village went quiet, no transmissions, no mail, nothing. Could just be the storm knocking out lines, but storms don't erase entire villages. I knew it then, though I didn't dare say it. We all did. The road itself should have been clear. According to the maps spread out under lantern light back at the barracks, there was a straight line cutting through the valley, a dirt track that farmers used to get supplies in and out. By winter, it should have been a frozen artery, leading us right to the village. But after the first hour of marching, the road just ended. Not faded into snow, ended, as if someone had taken a blade and sliced it clean away. "Lieutenant," I remember whispering, my breath forming ghosts in the air. "The road's gone." He didn't answer right away, just looked down at the map again, lips pressed tight. Then he muttered, more to himself than to us, "Keep moving east. It should be there." So we moved. The snow came down heavier the deeper we went, and with every step, the silence grew thicker. Normally, out in the countryside, you'd hear something. Crows circling above, dogs barking in the distance, the groan of trees under the weight of winter. But there was nothing, just the crunch of our boots and the faint squeak of our gear. Even the wind seemed to die when we entered that valley, like it was holding its breath. I was at the rear, as always. They put me there because I was steady with a rifle and didn't spook easy, but the truth was, I hated it. Being last meant every shadow behind us felt like it belonged to something following. I remember glancing back over my shoulder every few steps, half expecting to see figures in the snow. Once I thought I did, a shape standing by the tree line, pale and thin. I blinked, and it was gone. "Everything all right, comrade?" It was Anton, the youngest of us. Barely 20, face still soft under the frost, clinging to his eyelashes. He'd slowed his step to fall in beside me. His voice cracked like he was asking for reassurance more than giving it. "Yeah," I lied. "Just the cold playing tricks." We kept going. Hours passed, though time meant little out there. Day and night blended in that gray, endless winter light. My toes had gone numb by the second hour, my face by the third. When we finally saw the rooftops peeking through the snow ahead, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like stumbling onto a graveyard. The village wasn't buried, not completely. You could still make out the sloping roofs, the steeple of a church, a line of chimneys. But no smoke, no sound, no sign of life. Just structures half swallowed by snow, leaning like old men bent under invisible weight. "God," Anton breathed. It's dead." The lieutenant silenced him with a look, but his own jaw was tight. He gave the order in a low voice. "Stay sharp." Sweep formation. We spread out, rifles raised, boots crunching through the snow that seemed louder now, like it was announcing us to whoever, or whatever, was still here. My gut told me we weren't alone. You ever feel that? That prickling at the back of your neck? The weight of eyes you can't see? It was pressing down on me with every step we took closer to the village. The first house we entered smelled wrong. Not like rot, not yet, but stale. Like the air hadn't been disturbed in weeks. Dust clung to the windows, frost etched spiderwebs across the glass. Furniture sat where it should be, a table with chairs neatly tucked in, a teapot on the stove as if someone had just stepped out for firewood and never returned. "Clear," one of the men muttered. His voice echoed strangely in the stillness, bouncing back at us, too sharp, too quick. We checked another, and another. Same thing. Food on plates, beds made, clothes folded neatly by hearths. But no people. Not a body, not a bone. Not even the stray dog you'd expect to see sniffing at scraps. Where the hell did they go? Anton whispered, his voice breaking. No one answered. That night we set up camp in the church. The lieutenant said it was for shelter, for visibility, for tactical advantage. But I think he chose it because he was afraid to be alone in one of the houses. Maybe he thought God would watch over us there. The truth is, even God felt absent in that place. The church smelled of wax and mildew. Our lanterns threw shadows that twisted against the walls, making saints and angels look like specters. We unrolled our sleeping bags near the altar, and the silence pressed harder than ever. I remember lying awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, hearing nothing but my own breath rasping through a dry throat. Then came the sound. It was faint, just as I was drifting near sleep. A shuffle like footsteps in the snow outside. I held my breath. The sound came again, closer this time. My hand went to my rifle, fingers stiff with cold. "Lieutenant," I whispered, barely more than a breath. He was already awake, eyes open, hand raised to quiet me. He'd heard it too. We waited. The footsteps circled the church slowly, deliberate, crunch, pause, crunch, like whoever it was wanted us to know they were there. Then silence. Long, dragging silence. When I finally slept, it wasn't real rest. My dreams were filled with pale figures at the windows, their faces blurred, their mouths moving without sound. When morning came, the snow outside the church was untouched. No tracks, but we all knew what we'd heard, and that was just the first night. It was the second day when things began to fray. We'd woken stiff and sore inside the church, breath hanging in the air like smoke, every joint aching from the cold that never let up. No one mentioned the footsteps from the night before, not directly. But you could see it in the way the men moved, shoulders hunched, eyes darting to corners like rats expecting the trap to snap. Even Anton, who usually chattered to cover nerves, was silent, chewing on a crust of frozen bread like it was ash in his mouth. The lieutenant tried to keep us steady. He spoke about protocol and assessment, words that sounded too clean for what we were standing in. His voice cracked once when he ordered us to split into pairs and sweep the northern side of the village. Just once, but I caught it. My partner was Anton. Poor kid. He couldn't stop glancing over his shoulder, his rifle wobbling in his hands. "Easy," I told him as we trudged through the snow, our boots sinking into drifts that came up to our knees. "It's just houses. Nothing here but dust." He nodded, but I could see his eyes flicking toward the windows. Every house we passed had them. Black, empty, staring back at us, like eyes wide open in the skull of a corpse. We stopped at one near the edge of the village, a squat farmhouse with sagging shutters. The door creaked when I pushed it open, the sound echoing too loud in the silence. Inside, the air was thick and stale, tinged with something sour, like milk left out too long. I scanned the room, a table with 3 chairs, one of them knocked over. Plates sat with food still on them, a stew congealed into a dark crust. I bent closer, squinting. The stew wasn't rotten. It looked fresh. "Jesus," I muttered. "How?" Anton's voice quavered. They just left it?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to. We moved upstairs. The steps groaned under our weight, the sound making the hair on my arms rise. At the top there were 2 rooms. The first was empty, just a bed, a chest, clothes folded neatly. But the second, Anton grabbed my sleeve before I even saw it. "Look," he hissed. I followed his shaking finger. The window. Frost crusted its edges, but clear in the center, there was the shape of a hand. Pressed from the inside, small, a child's hand, my mouth went dry. I stepped closer, touched the glass. It was cold, solid, but the print was unmistakable. 5 fingers spread wide. "Someone was here," Anton whispered. His breath came in quick bursts. "Someone's still here." Before I could answer, a voice crackled faint through the radio strapped to my chest. It wasn't the lieutenant, not any of the men. Just a hiss, then a single word. "Run." I froze. Anton's eyes went wide as saucers. "What was that?" He breathed. I didn't know. But when I turned back to the window, the handprint was gone. Just frost. We didn't speak as we left the house. My gut churned like I'd swallowed ice. Back at the church, the others had stories too. Mikhail swore he'd seen smoke rising from a chimney, but when he went to check, the house was empty. Sergei claimed he heard laughter, children's laughter, coming from the well. He dropped a stone down and waited. "No splash! Enough!" the lieutenant snapped, slamming his rifle butt against the floor. His voice echoed through the church, sharp and angry. "You're letting the cold and your imaginations make fools of you. There is nothing here but an abandoned village. We'll stay another night, confirm, and report back." But his eyes told a different story. He hadn't seen anything, but he believed we had. And it rattled him. That night, none of us slept. The snowstorm picked up, rattling the shutters, howling against the church walls. I lay awake, rifle across my chest, every nerve stretched thin. Around midnight, Anton shook me awake, though I hadn't really been asleep. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. "Look," he whispered, pointing toward the window. I turned. And I swear on my life, I swear on every scar I carry, that I saw them, faces, dozens of them, pressed against the glass from outside, pale and blurred by the frost, their mouths moving but no sound coming through. Eyes hollow, dark, unblinking. I couldn't breathe. My chest locked, my throat closed. I blinked hard, rubbed at my eyes. When I looked again, the glass was empty, just snow pelting against it. But Anton had seen them too. His hand trembled on my arm, nails digging through my sleeve. "They were there," he whispered. "They were there." The lieutenant refused to believe us when we told him. He barked about exhaustion, about nerves, about hallucinations born of cold stress. But his hand shook when he lit a cigarette, and he didn't meet my eyes. The third day, we tried the radios again. Static, just endless static. Then faintly that same voice I'd heard before, the one that had told me to run. But this time it said something else. They never left. I dropped the radio like it burned me. The static hissed on, filling the church like the buzz of 1,000 angry bees. The lieutenant ordered us to shut it off, and we did, but the words stuck in my skull. They never left. By dusk, the village looked different. The snow had eased, and for the first time we could see farther down the valley. Houses we hadn't noticed before stretched into the distance, more than should have been there. It was like the village had grown overnight, spreading into the white. "Map's wrong," Sergei muttered, thumbing through the folded paper again. "This many houses weren't here. I swear it." "Maybe we missed them," the lieutenant said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Anton looked at me when the lieutenant turned away. His lips moved soundlessly, forming the words I didn't want to hear. "We didn't miss them. They weren't there before." That night, when the lanterns flickered low and the storm calmed, I thought I heard singing. Faint, drifting through the walls. A lullaby, Ukrainian, soft, almost gentle. Anton heard it too. He pressed close to me, whispering, "They're inside." And I didn't argue. Because deep down I believed him. The village wasn't empty, it was waiting. By the fourth day, the village felt less like a place and more like a trap we'd stumbled into. The lieutenant gathered us in the church before dawn, lantern light painting his face in gold and shadow. He looked older than he had a week before, lines carved deeper into his brow, eyes sunken and bloodshot. The storm had eased overnight, and we thought maybe, just maybe, we'd march out that morning. But his words cut that hope down quick. "We stay until confirmation," he said, voice clipped. "HQ wants detail. Not just notes, not just impressions. Evidence. You'll go house to house. Catalog everything? I don't care how long it takes." Mikhail spat into the corner, muttering. "Evidence of what?" "There's nothing here." The lieutenant ignored him. Or maybe he couldn't afford to acknowledge the question. I wanted to speak up, to tell him about the voices, the faces, the handprint that vanished before my eyes. But I didn't, because every time one of us brought up what we'd seen, his answer was the same. Cold stress, imagination, nonsense. If he admitted otherwise, it would mean he was just as terrified as we were. And then, God help us, there'd be nothing holding us together. So we nodded. Pretended we understood. Pretended the orders made sense. Anton and I were sent east, toward the row of houses we swore hadn't been there before. The snow crunched under our boots, too loud in the still air. The village stretched in ways that defied memory. The more I looked, the less I could map it in my head. Streets seemed to turn where they hadn't before. Alleys forked where there should have been dead ends. It was like the place was rewriting itself, you see that? Anton whispered, pointing toward a house at the corner. Its door was wide open, swinging gently, though no wind stirred. "I see it," I muttered, throat tight. We went in slow, rifles raised. The smell hit us first. Not rot, not flesh, but something metallic, sharp, like blood mixed with rust. My stomach turned. The main room was empty, dust thick enough to leave tracks in. But in the center of the floor was a table. On it, a set of plates. 3, each plate filled with meat. Cooked, steaming. "Fresh," Anton said, voice trembling. He reached out, hovered his hand above the food. "It's hot," I slapped his arm away. "Don't touch it." He swallowed, nodded. But his eyes wouldn't leave the plates. We searched the rest of the house. Upstairs, the wallpaper peeled in strips, curling like old skin. A mirror leaned against the wall in one bedroom, cracked down the middle. When I looked into it, I swear I didn't see myself. Not exactly. The face staring back had my eyes, my mouth, my uniform. But the skin was pale, stretched too tight. And the mouth. It was smiling. I stumbled back, heart hammering. "What is it?" Anton asked. But when I glanced at the mirror again, it was just me. Just my reflection, wide-eyed and shaking. "Nothing," I lied. "Just a trick of the glass. We left that house without another word." Back at the church, the others reported similar things. Houses with fires still burning in the hearths. Toys scattered on the floor as if children had been playing seconds before. Sergei claimed he found a journal on a bedside table, pages filled with handwriting that shifted language line by line, from Ukrainian to Russian to something none of us recognized. He tried to show it to us, but when he opened the book again, the pages were blank. The lieutenant listened in silence, jaw tight. When we finished, he lit another cigarette and said, "Document what you saw." "That's all. Document," Mikhail barked. "We should be leaving. Now. This place isn't right. We don't leave until I give the order." The lieutenant's voice was steel, but I saw the twitch in his hand as he flicked ash to the floor. We didn't argue. Not out loud. But when I caught Anton's eyes across the firelight, I knew we were thinking the same thing. The lieutenant wasn't keeping us here for HQ. He was keeping us here because he couldn't admit we were in danger. That night, I didn't sleep. None of us really did. The church walls groaned like something was leaning against them, heavy and patient. I heard whispers, faint as a breath, drifting through the cracks. Not words I understood, but syllables that seemed to curl inside my skull like smoke. Anton sat up beside me, rifle in his lap, face pale. "They're watching us," he whispered. "I can feel them." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that it was just the storm or the cold. But I couldn't, because I felt it too. Then the radios came alive again. Not static this time. Voices, clear, human, but not ours. "Hold position at the east end. They're moving. Copy that. Sweep north. Don't let them circle." Orders. Sharp, clipped military, but not in our unit's voices. Not in any accent I recognized. The lieutenant snatched the radio, barked into it. "This is Captain Rudenko, 14th Recon. Identify yourselves." No answer. Just the voices continuing, ignoring him, talking over him like we weren't even there. "Keep them inside the church. Don't let them leave." My blood went cold. Anton looked at me, wide-eyed. "They're talking about us." The lieutenant slammed the radio down, face pale as ash. For the first time, he had no orders, no explanations. Just silence. No one spoke for a long time after that. Around dawn, Sergei snapped. He grabbed his pack, muttering, "I'm done. I'm not staying here to die." He stormed toward the doors, ignoring the lieutenant's shouts. He didn't make it 3 steps outside. The snow swallowed him. One moment he was there, a dark shape against the white. The next, gone. No scream, no struggle. Just gone. We rushed outside, boots hammering against the frozen ground. The snow lay smooth, undisturbed. No footprints, no hole. "No, Sergei," Anton whispered, voice cracking. He just vanished." The lieutenant stared at the empty snow, face stone. Then he turned back to us, eyes hollow. "Back inside," he said. His voice was flat, dead. We obeyed. But none of us pretended anymore. We weren't on reconnaissance. We weren't on patrol. We were trapped, and the village wasn't letting us leave. By the 5th night, we'd stopped pretending we were soldiers. Oh, we still wore the uniforms, still carried the rifles, still answered when the lieutenant barked. But that was habit, not duty. Inside, we were cracked open. The silence of that village had gotten into our bones, and every shadow looked like it was about to move. We weren't patrolling anymore. We were surviving. I remember sitting near the altar, the lantern burning low, hands shaking as I rolled a cigarette I didn't even smoke. My ears wouldn't stop ringing, not from gunfire, but from the constant hum in the air, the same hum you get before a radio transmission. Except no one was speaking yet. The lieutenant stood apart, pacing slow circles near the doors. He hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, and every so often his lips would move like he was repeating something under his breath. Orders, maybe. Or prayers. That's when the radios crackled. Not one. All of them, every set, strapped to every man, came alive at once. Hissing, then sharp voices spilling out like a flood. Maintain formation. East sector compromised. Don't let them breach the perimeter. Repeat, they're still inside. The voices weren't ours. Too many, too fast. Overlapping like a dozen different units were transmitting at once. But the worst part, the part that froze my blood, was hearing our own names. Mikhail, flank south. Anton, hold position. Target, Rudenko, neutralize. We froze. Every one of us. Staring at the radios like they were snakes in our hands. Anton ripped his headset off, tossed it to the ground like it burned. It's them, he whispered. They know us. The lieutenant snatched his radio, barked into it. Identify yourselves. This is Captain Rudenko of the 14th Reconnaissance. Who the hell is transmitting? But the voices didn't acknowledge him. They just kept speaking, clear as a commander's orders. Calm, cold, contain the church. Suppress survivors. Repeat, suppress survivors. I remember the look on the lieutenant's face then. Not anger, not defiance, just realization, like something inside him had snapped. Kill the radios, he said. His voice was low, hollow. We obeyed, smashing the sets against the stone floor. Sparks, wires, silence. But the silence didn't comfort us this time. It felt worse, because the voices hadn't sounded distant. They'd sounded close. That night, nobody slept. We sat in a circle, rifles across our laps, eyes darting to every shadow. The lanterns flickered as if the air itself was breathing. Once, just before dawn, I thought I heard a knock at the church door. 3 slow raps, then silence. No one else moved. No one dared. By morning, Anton was shaking so hard he couldn't hold his rifle. They're hunting us, he muttered over and over. Like animals. They want us penned in here. No one corrected him. The lieutenant finally spoke, voice raw like he'd been swallowing glass. We're leaving. At first light tomorrow. Pack light, carry only weapons and water. Mikhail laughed bitterly. Tomorrow. You've said tomorrow before. But the lieutenant didn't answer. That day, we avoided the houses. No more sweeping, no more documenting. We huddled in the church, the daylight weak and gray, waiting for the dark to fall again. And when it did, the radios came back, even though they were smashed. I swear to God, Shoaib, swear it on my life. I saw one of those busted sets lying in pieces near the altar. Its wires were snapped, casing cracked, but the speaker lit up, glowed faint green. Proceed with termination. The voice was so calm, so damn ordinary, like someone giving a weather report. Anton screamed, scrambled back, tripping over his pack. It's impossible. It's broken. The lieutenant didn't say a word. He just raised his rifle and fired. 3 shots into the radio until it was nothing but shrapnel and smoke. Silence followed, but only for a moment. Then, every radio, every broken husk, every piece of shattered equipment lit up at once. Speakers glowing faint green, and they all spoke in unison. They are not to leave the village. The sound filled the church like thunder, vibrating in the stone walls, rattling the glass in the windows. It wasn't loud, but it was everywhere, inside our heads as much as in our ears. Anton clutched his temples, screaming. Mikhail fired into the shadows, bullets ricocheting off stone. I dropped to my knees, hands shaking, bile rising in my throat. The lieutenant stood frozen, staring at the pile of broken radios. His lips moved. I don't know if he was praying, or if he was repeating those same orders he'd heard. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the sound cut. Silence slammed down so hard my ears rang. We sat in that silence for a long time, none of us speaking, afraid the walls would answer back. Finally, the lieutenant whispered, "Get some rest." We move at dawn, but rest didn't come. Not for me. Not for any of us. I remember staring at the flickering lanterns, the shadows dancing on the cracked plaster walls. Every so often I swore I saw faces in the dark corners, watching, waiting. Pale outlines that vanished when I blinked. And then, God help me, I heard my own voice. It came from one of the shattered radios, faint, garbled. My voice whispering. Don't trust him, I froze, bile rising in my throat. The others didn't seem to notice. No one else reacted. Just me, my own voice, warning me. When I looked at the lieutenant across the church, I saw him staring back at me, eyes sharp, like maybe he'd heard it too. Or maybe he already knew. That was the night I realized something none of us wanted to admit. The voices weren't trying to scare us. They were giving orders. And the question eating me alive even now is, were we the enemy they were hunting? Or were we the ones supposed to follow? We left at dawn, or at least we tried to. The lieutenant was first out the doors, rifle slung tight, jaw set like a man walking to his own execution. We followed in a broken line, Anton beside me pale and shivering, Mikhail muttering curses under his breath. The snow crunched loud under our boots, and for the first time since arriving, I noticed the sky was clear. The storm had passed. The valley was wide open, white and endless, but the road wasn't there. It should have been a straight path leading back through the hills, back toward the base, toward warmth and the living. Instead, all we saw was snow, smooth, unbroken, no road, no tracks. Just white stretching into the horizon. Mikhail spat. We're going in circles. We've been going in circles this whole time. No, the lieutenant said, his voice low. It's the village. It won't let us leave. Anton grabbed my arm, eyes wide. What does he mean it won't let us? It's just a place, just a village. But even as he said it, his voice cracked. Because deep down he didn't believe his own words. None of us did. We marched anyway, east-west, it didn't matter. We kept moving, rifles tight in our hands, breaths ragged in the cold air. After an hour, I swore I saw the church spire rising ahead again, the same broken steeple we'd left behind. We're back, I said. My voice was hollow. Anton shook his head violently. No, that's impossible. We've been walking away, but there it was. The church, waiting. We stumbled inside like beaten dogs. The lieutenant didn't speak. He just sat down hard on the steps by the altar, face buried in his hands. That's when the radios came back. Not with orders this time. Not with overlapping voices, but with whispers. Our whispers. I heard my own voice. Faint and broken. Don't trust him. I heard Anton's voice. Crying. They're inside. I heard Mikhail's laugh. Bitter and ragged. We're already dead. The whispers filled the church until the walls shook with them. Until my own skull felt like it was splitting. Anton screamed, clapping his hands over his ears, rocking back and forth. Mikhail raised his rifle, shouting into the air, "Shut up! Shut up!" before firing into the walls. Bullets ricocheted, plaster exploded, but the whispers didn't stop. The lieutenant rose slowly, his face calm in a way that froze me. He walked to the altar, laid his rifle across it like an offering, and said, "It's not the village. It's us. We were never meant to leave." "What the hell are you saying?" I shouted. He turned, and his eyes, I'll never forget them, hollow, resigned. "These aren't orders from headquarters. These are our orders. We're following what's already been decided." "Decided by who?" Mikhail spat. "What are you talking about?" The lieutenant didn't answer. He just sat back down, head bowed like a penitent. That night, Anton shook me awake again. His face was as pale as the snow outside, his lips trembling. "I saw them," he whispered. "At the window, children. They were calling me. Anton, they said my name." He cut me off, eyes wide and glassy. "They said come with us." I grabbed his shoulders, tried to steady him. "It's not real. It's this place. It's in our heads." But when I looked at the window, I swear, just for a moment, I saw small shapes pressed against the glass. Pale faces, hollow eyes, mouths moving silently. And then Anton was gone. I don't know how. One second he was in front of me, trembling in my grip. The next he was stumbling toward the door. By the time I reached it, he was outside, running into the snow. "Anton!" I screamed. My voice tore through the night air, echoing into nothing. I chased him, boots sinking deep. I saw him ahead, a dark shape against the white, growing smaller, smaller, until he was gone. Swallowed, like Sergei. No tracks, no sound, just gone. I stood there in the snow, chest heaving, the cold clawing at my lungs. And for the first time, I felt it fully, the truth I'd been avoiding. The village didn't just hold us, it took us, one by one. When I stumbled back into the church, Mikhail was laughing. Not the bitter laugh I'd heard before, but wild, broken laughter. "They're taking us," he gasped, "one at a time. That's the game." The lieutenant sat silent, staring at the floor. He didn't argue. Didn't try to command anymore. He just sat. By morning, Mikhail was gone, too. No struggle, no scream. Just his bedroll empty. That left me and the lieutenant. We didn't speak much after that. There was nothing left to say. We sat in silence, rifles across our laps, lanterns burning low. Every so often I thought I heard footsteps outside circling. Sometimes I thought I heard Anton's voice calling faintly, "Come with us." On the seventh night, the lieutenant stood. He looked at me, his face hollow but calm. "I'll go first," he said, and he walked out into the snow. I didn't follow. I didn't move. I just sat there, clutching my rifle, listening to the silence. He didn't come back. No one ever does. That was more than 30 years ago. Winter of '89. Some nights I still wake up with frost in my lungs, my ears ringing with voices that aren't mine. You ask me what really happened in that village? I don't know. Maybe it was some experiment, some Soviet project we were never told about. Maybe it was just madness, the cold, the isolation, eating away at our minds until we turned on ourselves. Or maybe, God help me, maybe that village was never alive to begin with. Maybe it was a mouth, a trap lying in wait for fools like us. All I know is this: I left. I don't remember how. One morning I woke up outside the valley, frostbitten and half dead, my rifle frozen to my hands. No tracks behind me, no sign of the others. They were gone. Every last one. And the village, when the rescue patrol went back with me, wasn't there. No houses, no church. Just empty snow. They told me I imagined it. That I was broken from the cold. That the 14th Recon never went on that patrol. But I know what I saw, what I heard, what I lost. And sometimes when the night is quiet, when the wind dies down and the air holds its breath, I hear it again. The voices. They are not to leave the village. And I know, one day, the silence will come for me too.